In this video, I'm just going to give you an overview of Bambu Studios, and in order to do that, I am going to just use a model that I quickly sculpted up here. This dripping figure, little art toy market. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to import this into the system and go from there. So with Bambu Studio, what you can do is you can basically, in the prepare zone, come to File and import a particular file that you're after. And you can also just grab a file and you can drag it in and drop it. And this is an OBJ file, and you'll note here that it's saying that this must be in meters or inches and you want to scale. So it's a really nice feature, and it's going to scale the model in here. Also, what we'll notice is that the sculpt has more than 1 million triangles, and it's saying down here there's the size in millimeters, the volume, and the number of triangles, and I can simplify. So if I chose to simplify, what I can do is I can get a preview. So if I take the detail level to extra low, I'll get a preview and it'll be very faceted. Or if I take it up to detailed level, it'll be a lot smoother. So for the purpose of this, I am going just to take it down to high. We'll have a look. Yeah, and that's pretty good. High is pretty good. And it's taken it down to, I don't know what level it is, but we can see here the number of triangles, and I'm happy with that. It's got a little bit of facet on it, but we'll lose that in the print quality. I'll just apply it. We can also notice that it's brought the model in, and it's put it on the bed, and it's dropped it in a particular orientation that is not good for 3D printing, but I'll get to that in a minute. And you'll notice that the model is blue. So over here we've got our prepare, preview, device, project and calibration sections. We're going to deal with the first 3, and in prepare it has the printer that you might be using. So I'm using a Bambu Lab X1C with a 0.4 nozzle. The plate type, I'm using a textured plate that comes with the printer, and you can choose the different plates here. I'm pretty sure at RMIT the plate is the same plate that I have at home. And then in here I've got different filaments. So the first filament, 1, 2, 3 and 4 filaments are in my AMS unit, which is automatic feeding device at the top of the printer, and we have those at RMIT as well. And the 5th printer is a manually loaded printer, and here I've got a TPU material. So in order to change the material quickly on our model, we can just press on a keypad the numbers 1 through 5. So if I press on 2 on this model, you'll note it will go to white basic PLA. If I press 3, it goes to grey basic PLA. If I press 4, it goes to black PLA. And if I press 5, you won't see any change, but it's actually set up for the TPU. So I'm just going to go to the 3 here, to the basic grey. And then also what we can see here is that we have global and object modes. So in the global mode, if we have multiple objects in here, so if I get this and I go Control-C-V, I make a copy, I've got 2 versions. And in global, if I change all my settings, it'll change it for both and it will print them both the same. But under objects, what I can do is I can select a specific model, and then I can change all of the parameters for that model only. And I can have different infills, different wall thicknesses, for each different model that I might have here, and I might want to test a few features that way, and I can just do it in the object mode. So if we go back to global, underneath here what we'll see is we've got different layer heights, and I've got a few different materials added in here, but if I run down here, these are the system presets, and they relate to the all the printers in fact, but here it's to the X1C. At RMIT we have an X1E, so in here an X1E would appear at the top, and you would select that printer, and then all the profiles that relate to that printer appear here. So the standard is 0.2 millimeter height layers. You can print in 0.28. You can print all the way down to 0.08, and typically I print a lot of things on 0.2 standard and 0.16 and 0.12. So if I just press 0.12 standard, then I've got my quality. So here I've got my layer height, which is preset. I've got all these other preset defaults that you don't need to change. The seam position is aligned, and we can change that to nearest, align, back, and random, and I'll look at that. We'll look at that in more detail in class. And effectively, we have the strength. So here it's 2 wall thicknesses. We can add more wall thicknesses. We've got a bottom number of layers and a top number of layers and a bottom number of layers. We've got an infill pattern of those top and bottom layers, and then we've got our infill density and the style here. Typically gyroid is a very quick one and very reliable infill. In our speed settings, effectively they're all default with Bambu. And I leave them at default. I don't adjust these at all. The support, if we enable support, there are different types of support. So normal support is that linear back and forth built up, and then we also have a tree support. There's a threshold angle as to up to 30 degrees, it'll add support, or we can change that. So up to say 10 degrees, it'll add support in those areas. We can also manually add support, and we'll go through that in class as well. I'll just stick this back to 30. You can say only put support on the build plate only. So from build plate up, it will add support. Anywhere above that, if there's an undercut, it won't add it in. We have raft layers, so we don't need to have them turned on. And then the other thing that I use here in others typically is the if you're changing filaments, you need to have a prime tower enabled. But also here a brim, so we can add an outer brim, an inner brim, or an outer and inner brim, and it's really important, especially say for a model that's this small, depending with these feet just gripping the platen. It may, as you're moving further up the model, knock the model off, and then it'll just print spaghetti in midair. Luckily enough, the X1C and the X1E both have AI detection for spaghetti, and they'll pause and stop typically so that you don't waste filament. So that's the rough setup here. I'll just go back to quality for this layout in Prepare. The other things that we can do here is we'll notice that there's a toolbar, so we can add more build plates. We can auto-orientate our models. If I click this, let's see what happens if I click auto-orientate. It's pretty smart, got it right. Click on that one. We can also, let's have a look, arrange all objects. This is a variable layer height. This is moving. You'll note that there's a shortcut M key. This is rotating, shortcut R key. scaling, shortcut S key, and lay on face, shortcut F key, and cutting C. So, and then also here we can manually paint supports. We can manually paint where we want the seam line to go. We can add text, we can add color, we can measure, and we can add these nice little brim ears as well to the edges of our print. So here, if I want to orientate this, I can press F for face, and you'll note that what it does is it pops up and it shows me a few faces, but I actually want to do an underneath, and it's got no face. So if I click that, you'll note it orientates it. Let's go Control Z. So what I want to do is I want to manually rotate. So I want to rotate it here around the X, the red, and then you'll note that there's these external lines here, and it'll snap to these every 5 degrees. But then you'll notice in here there's also every 45 degrees snapping, so I can quickly snap it to 90, and then it'll pop the model up there. And I can press M for move, I can grab that and I can move it. And there we have it, we have 2 models orientated onto the build platform. What we will notice is underneath here, under his their feet, it's actually not completely flat, so I'm going to have to put support material all the way in underneath here. And you can see it on a model that we can hand around in class. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice the plate just with default, and just click Slice Plate. Here you can see it's slicing the plate, it's generating the G code, and it's put in a whole bunch of support. So what it's done is it's looked at this and it said, I need to put some brim. So this blue area is brim. It's also putting support material underneath the feet to hold it. And it's put material right up in underneath these little droops, these drips here. So what we can do, and it's giving us a estimation of the print time, and it's got a full color code here as to what all these things mean. And if I grab this and I pull it down, you'll see the slice, and you'll see inside it's got the gyroid infill, and you'll see it run all the way down to the bottom. So there's the first print layer, and from there it goes up. Okay, so what we can do is we can, under support, if we disable the support and then we sliced it, you'll note here it's got a warning. It says, it's telling us that there are pieces here that it's actually identified with a color that are undercuts and that we need to support them. So let's come over here and enable support. Let's put support on 10 degrees and slice the plate again. And we can see here that it's basically done the same kind of thing. And then we can change the type to tree and then slice the plate again. And then here we can see that it's only put support in this little tree that's grown underneath the drips, and it actually hasn't put any support underneath these legs here. Now that could be a bad thing, so let's adjust our threshold angle, say back to 30, and let's slice the plate again and see what it does. Okay, so now we can see that it's put a tree in underneath, and put a few more little trees under here, under his bot, who's got a few little supports, and under his arms, etc, etc. So the nice thing about the Bambu is that really you don't have to print the support in a different material. These supports come off so easily. It's unbelievable. You'll note here that the brim is touched, so what we might do is go back to prepare, grab this model and just drag it over a little bit and then slice plate again. That way we can remove the two and have them separated. Okay, so what we can also do here is if we click on objects and I click on, let's go to prepare, this one, under here, under strength, I can change the infill density, say to 10%, and I can make the wall loops 3. And now if I go slice plate, what we'll see effectively is not a lot of change, but when we here pull our layers down and we look inside and we look at these two models, what we do see is that here the infill is much more open because it's 10%. Here it's on 15%. Here we can see an orange and yellow layer line, and here we can see an orange and 2 layer lines because we've got 3 layers on here. So you can optimize your model and optimize its wall thickness, its infill thickness, depending on the properties that you require for the type of thing that you're printing. This sort of mock-up art toy really probably only needs two layers and 15% infills, overkill. But, you know, it'll print it pretty quickly. You can note here 33 minutes for both models, so about 15 minutes roughly for one of them. But we can come in here and we can edit all of the options that we went through before. Even the support type, we can change it to normal. And then if we go slice, you'll note that this one has the tree, this one has the normal support. So it's a really great feature here where we can globally edit all our models, or we can manually edit each object by itself. So now that we've got this, and we've set up our material, we've set up all the properties, effectively what we can do is we can here slice the plate, and then here we have options. We can print the plate. So if we're connected directly to our printer, which we are at the moment, at home via the Wi-Fi, we can print directly to the plate. At RMIT, you can, with the right account, print directly to the plate. But you can also send a file. So if we click send, and then we press send here, we'll get a dialog box up, and we can choose where we want to send it to. So here's my printer. I can just send it manually, and that'll let me store it while it's already printing a file. So send is a really great option. But let's just go print plate, and we can also export the plate slice file to an SD card, and we can then put the SD card in the printer and print the print from the printer directly, as long as the materials match with what we've got. But we can manually in the printer change the materials as well. So let's go print plate and press print plate again. And what it'll do is, this is the job. It's PLA, 40 minutes, 24 seconds, 10 grams of filament. It's my printer here, and I can choose to turn on bed leveling. So before it does the print, it'll go out and check the bed and level it. I can do a flow calibration. So I can, with the X1C, I can do a little print calibration, and it reads that and uses an AI to make sure that the print is coming out of the nozzle properly. And I can do a time lapse, so I can record a time lapse of that. So I'll leave that on, and I'll put that in below this video. And I have to have AMS enabled in order to use these 4 materials at the top. If I turn that off, then I can use my external material, which is my TPU material. So let's go send. It's sending the job out to the printer via the Wi-Fi. And now what it'll do is it'll switch to device in a second. Now it's switched to device. This is my printer. This is all the controls for the printer. And here is where it gives me the progress. And I can press here, and I can preview inside my printer. I can turn the light off and on for my printer, and I can control a whole range of things here. And effectively, what it's currently doing is it's heating the print bed. Then it'll heat the nozzle. It'll clean the nozzle here. It'll poop out some material, and we can see the bed moving. The bed will come up, it'll do a little bit of leveling. It will check to make sure the bed is correct there's a QR code on the bed, and then it'll print the file. Here you can see the PLA material. We can see my AMS, what the humidity is. I can see my external material, and off it will go and it will print. We'll see here that it will take up this material and feed it into the printer once the bed has heated. And then at the end of all this, the job will finish and it'll tell us that the print job is done. So there we have it. There's a basic intro to the Bambu Studio software.